Hi, I'm Kiwi,
And I'm Jarad.
and we are the two gentlemen coming to you wherever you are. Jarad, how are you?
Good, good. I'm here and I'm good. Nothing to report, but yeah, loving life and you know, that's it. Nothing really to report, as I said. How
Yeah.
about yourself, mate?
Yeah, I'm excellent. I've got a lot to report. Well, not a lot, but something exciting. We've booked a trip.
Oh
Actually,
wow.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
something that we wanted to do for a while. A friend of mine's moved up to Coffs Harbour or around there anyway,
Mm.
and I thought, oh, it'd be great to go and see him sometime. And
Yeah, it's
yeah,
awesome.
with restrictions lifting, we're hoping that we stay on our timetable and we
Yeah.
can actually go up there in December. So I've booked my leave, I've booked the place. Really looking forward to it. I've never been up there before. I know that you went up there when we were very young.
Yeah, yeah,
Looks
yeah.
beautiful, and I'm sure my kids will love it, which is the main thing.
Yeah, I've been through there a few times, so it's not a bad place. And I've never stayed there. Like I know I've stayed like I have stayed there, sorry, earlier, but as a family, I've never actually stayed there. But yeah, it seems like a nice spot. So yeah, hope it all works out.
Yeah, so do I. And look, it can't go
Um,
wrong when you're with your family and just having fun.
yeah, I know. We've sort of got our eyes set on a few little trips, not far away, but not as far as Coffs Harbour, but a few hours away where we've got friends where we can kind of do a little bit of a tour, if that makes sense. So it might only be like a half an hour drive between the friends' places, but we'll just sort of, do a couple of days, us on tour.
Yeah,
Yeah, it should be fun. Should be
that's
fun.
great. Yeah, look, I
Yeah.
hope everyone, yeah, when the roadmap is fully implemented, roadmap to freedom, I hope everyone can make the most of it and just see everyone that they haven't seen.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to it. Um, Something I was looking forward to for me 8 years ago was becoming a father. And for you, that was for the first time, and
Yeah.
and for you, it would have been longer than that. But I, I don't think I was prepared fully. I, read some books and did all those sort of things and tried to find what the experts on the internet were doing. But yeah, like the actual becoming a father. Um, there's no training for that. I don't think, or a parent in general, but for this topic, for us becoming fathers, there was nothing there that sort of told me everything. And you kind of learnt as you went. And for me, it was just little things that were a big shock to the system. So maybe I was prepared for all the big things, but all the just the little intricacy. I can't even say it, but all those little things that fatherhood brings, that you don't think of. Like, just for example, I was never a person that would go out all the time, but like our life before kids, we play a lot of sport. So my wife would go off and play netball on a particular night, and I'd have the night to myself. So I'd be like, oh well, I'll just duck down the pub and grab a chicken schnitzel or something, or go grab a beer, or go for whatever. I was free to just make. If I wanted to stay home, I stay home. Um, but when you've got this newborn, it's like, oh, okay, the wife's off to netball. You've got to put the newborn to bed. You can't. There's little things like you're accountable now. Like you're accountable for your decisions, and that was a big sort of shock to me. Like, I know it sounds simple, but it just sort of hit home when I was like, oh, I can't just duck to the shops and grab something. These are the times where I used to be able to do that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's just one little thing. But becoming a father for you, how did it change your life? I know that's a big, broad question, but
Yeah.
was there any little things that you learned along the way?
I'm learning all the time, but it's complete. It's a bomb in your life. It really is. And we planned for it. We
Mm.
chose this. We consciously said, "Oh yeah, let's have kids, so let's do it."
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's other people out there who had kids without expecting it. I
Mm.
remember one friend in particular who rang me in shock that he was going to become a father, and that would be
Mm.
much more difficult because you've only got that 9 months to adjust, really.
Yeah.
Whereas we got to plan it, we got to think about it, and say, "Yep, this is something that we actually want to do." The biggest shock for me isn't the lifestyle changes. I think I expected that, but it's just the amount of stuff that you've got personally as a father to unpack that you don't want to pass on to your kids. The amount of things that you need to become aware of about your own psychology, about your own childhood, all that sort of stuff. And that brings up so much for everybody. I think it's difficult for everyone if they genuinely want to examine themselves before they have kids or after they've had kids. It's a really long journey, and I feel like that's the biggest thing. Kids are easy, Kids don't give you trouble. You just stay out of their way. It's us. It's my ego. It's all the stuff that I've brought into this from my own life. That's the problem, and to me, that's been the biggest challenge.
Yeah. Well, it's such a what's the word? Like it's a mixing bowl of all these things that you've got to try and work out. But for me too, like when you have a newborn, all you're concerned about is that they go to sleep at a certain time, they feed at a certain time. These are your problems, right? These are your like the biggest problems in the world, and for you and your little family, that's and it's valid, like it is, and it's not at all saying it isn't. And then all of a sudden they get to 12 months old, or between 12 and 18 months old, and they start to walk. And then it's like, oh man, we've got to make sure they can't put anything in their mouth. They can't do this, all this stuff that you've got to adjust your whole house for. And then you think, oh, I just cannot wait until they don't put anything in their mouth. And then you're like, oh, now that they can talk, now that they can do things, now that they can like get in and try and make their own, like when they get to 3 or 4 or 5, they start to get to the point where they're doing their own stuff. They're independent to a certain degree. You're like, oh man, I hope they don't walk out the front door or, unlock the keys. You always got a problem. And, like I'm only halfway through this. Well, I'm not gonna say halfway, but I'm through this like child's life before they, turn 18 and become adults. But, for me, you're a dad until, you're not here. But like my kids are only young, but I've still got to go through the teenage years. And I'm sure back when I go through that, I'll be like, oh man, I wish I was worried about, nappies and dummies and, all that sort of stuff, like these problems that are problems for a period of time then get fixed. But there's another problem, and I probably shouldn't say the word problem, but there's another challenge. I think that's the probably more the word. And it just never stops.
No, we've said it before in an earlier podcast, Jarad, that life doesn't get easier. You just get better at it.
Yeah.
And all we can hope is that our kids are equipped with what they need to get through life. Yeah. And I think that's been one of my biggest challenges, that I think, oh, this is a relevant thing that needs to be passed on, but my kids might not be interested in it.
Yeah.
For example, handwriting, to me, it's just something that we did as kids. We wrote all the time. And that's the only thing we had. We didn't have computers at school. By the time we'd left school, they were talking about a computer in every classroom as if it was this big deal. Now every kid's got a phone,
Yeah.
So, that's become something that's almost obsolete. I'm not saying that you'll never, ever have to use handwriting ever again, but it's a skill that has very little relevance compared to what it used to.
Yeah.
So little things like that I've had to adjust. And also our expectations of our kids. So, you're talking about the future challenges. Well, we've got a way that we'd get through those challenges. Well, our kids have a different idea.
Yeah.
And that's up to us to adjust our expectations and perceptions of what life really is and how problems can be solved. So, that's been the biggest challenge for me. It's me getting out of the way. It's not them.
Yeah. Look, I just, and if you sat in a room with so many, with different people, you could talk for hours about it, because everyone's got a different way of doing things. Because I rewinding back to, hey, here's your little human in your arms.
Yeah.
You become everything to that child. You're its best friend. You're its its teacher. You're its, the list goes on, right? You're its carer. They're fully dependent on you, and that moment you get given that responsibility, I'm sure people have been through so many different emotions and concerns and all these different things that would flood their minds. I mean, did you at that point, did something stand out for you in your mind?
Yeah, I always had this vision of how a child should be raised, and I had to throw that out the window, because you're dealing with someone who is already born with something. Every child is different. Your kids are different from one another.
Yeah.
I've met them. I haven't spent heaps of time with them, but they're very different girls.
Yeah.
Same with my boys. You don't know them that well, but you could tell pretty quickly that they're very different people, very different personalities.
Yeah.
So that's probably the biggest thing to me, that, you might have a vision. You might want to do this and that and feel like, oh, yes, I've been put in this role as their teacher, as their mentor. But how they receive you, well, that's not necessarily up to you. They've got their own personality and they're born with it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And you got this idea, if you're a really organized person, you might have your step-to-step, bullet points. But guess what? If the bullet point isn't responded to, or you're not going anywhere with it, I tell you. And like I said, these kids have their own built-in the mechanisms there to, either they don't like that, or, like my eldest, I remember from a really young age, like, and my youngest isn't so much, but I remember her, like, she would pick her clothes from the time that before she could even walk. Like, you'd be like, oh, and because we'd always give her the option, like we'd always say, do you want to wear this? And she'd just point, or this is like I said, really young.
Yeah.
But she is adamant still to this day, like she won't wear that. And we've got these most beautiful clothes in there that she hasn't touched because she didn't pick it. We bought it for her, or someone bought it for her for a present. She just did. It's her. She knows she doesn't like it. Like it's like it's a shirt. Surely just wear it. Trust me, it looks good with these pants. And like even now when I have my little like, come on, just wear this. It's beautiful. It's nice. It's new. It fits you. She's like, no. And she puts on, the old shirt or whatever. And you think about, well, we do that too, like we've got clothes in our wardrobe that we don't. But I mean, just the whole, the decision-making was there so early that it's like, well, I was planning on putting her in that pink shirt. And now all of a sudden she wants to wear this blue shirt. And you're like, okay, wear the blue shirt. And there goes my whole day of planning. You have in your mind, you're trying to plan it out, but these kids just, they ruin that.
And that's
they ruin that plan.
And what does it matter though? Like what are we planning for? And that's the thing. And all we want, I think, is for our kids to be happy. At the end of the day, when they're adults, we want them to see them have fulfilling lives. Whereas, are we actually setting them up for that? Sometimes we're setting them up for a life that we want to see them live, but it might not be their true self. And a good example of that is sometimes, and I know this does happen, parents will put their kids on a waiting list to get into a school before the kid's even born, or like right after they're born, basically. And I mean, like the week after they're born, they'll put their name at an exclusive school. Yeah. Now, how do you know that your kid wants to go to that school? So you're spending your whole time, the child's early years, basically molding them into a particular person, not letting them discover who they really are, but you're molding them so that they can head in that direction. Now, we indoctrinate our children with religious beliefs. We've never talked about religion on this show before, and I'm not going to get into it, but that's just something that we do to children. We tell them what to believe. We give them their worldview. We tell them what's good and bad. I've heard of people manipulating their kids to become racist, for example. Seeing my kids run around in their little community with kids from all different backgrounds, it's like, it's clear that racism is completely made up. It comes from us adults. The kids are fine. They all get along. So we carry so much baggage with us. And that's the thing, like, what is the issue? A lot of the time when I step back, it's like, wow, it's just me. I'm the issue. I'm the one that keeps getting in the way.
No, that's a great point. And it's sort of, I had a few little things as you were saying there that, like it's that preconceived idea that us as adults, and you said it right at the start, was, we bring our stuff into it, and, oh geez, it'd be nice for you to wear that shirt, because why? Why does it matter?
Yeah.
Oh, because I bought it and it's new and it's all about me. But then eventually you just give in and you go, oh, actually, you know what? If it makes you happy, you can wear that shirt that's covered in crayon and whatever, like you won't sit there and fight, because you'll give it, like me, I will just be like, oh, well, I don't really want you to wear that shirt that much. Like, I'd rather you be happy than me force that shirt onto you.
Yeah.
Now I'm a particular way. I mean, other people would probably like, no, you've got to show them who's the boss. And, and I mean, again, that's their prerogative. They've got a reasoning behind that. But I guess, for me, it's, you voiced it, but I agree that, as long as they're happy and, as a parent, it's all about sacrifice, to make sure that your kids are happy. And, I don't want to particularly go out and sit at a park for 3 hours while while I just sit there while they play around. That's how I wouldn't pick my Saturday when I was in the mid-20s, but essentially, like their happiness is the reason you're doing that, that's just one example. But, I wouldn't go swimming lessons and stuff, as long as they're having fun, like that's the whole thing. So, but it's a mixed, you've got to, like, for example, I just said swimming lessons. Like, I'm teaching my kids, like, we don't have a pool, but I want to teach them to swim so they're safe.
Yeah.
So I'm not doing that for their fun.
Yeah.
I'm doing that because that's my preconceived idea that, hey, if my kid falls into a pool later in life or, goes swimming with their friends, that they can actually do that later. But then we make it fun for them, it's sort of designed to be fun. So yeah, there's these, like, we want them to be educated, I guess, in a certain way that they can survive.
Yeah.
But, then there's that sort of, we don't want to enforce so much of our mindset that, onto them that, like it's a really thin line. Like it's easy to cross sometimes.
It is. And it's like, whose opinion is more important? That's the thing. And now we often say, well, we're older, we've got the experience, and, they'll find out one day that we're doing this for their own good.
Yeah.
But I do wonder when does a child need to actually learn something? Now, swimming's a different thing. I think that's a bit of a health and safety thing. But, for example, sport. I was talking to my legendary friend the other day. We had a great chat, actually, and he was just talking about his son and how great he is at sport.
Yeah.
But he doesn't want to play a particular sport anymore. And he said, I wish he had a bit more competitiveness in him.
Yeah.
And this kid, he's a natural athlete. I was playing Frisbee with him when he was, he must have been like 5 or something. The way he was catching, he was just snatching it out of the air. It wasn't like, when kids catch things with 2 arms like these, they hug it into their chest. Yeah. He was just snatching it out of the air like it's nothing and flinging it back. And I was like, wow, this kid's got great hand-eye coordination.
I've seen the videos that this guy puts up on Facebook of his kid playing sport, and I'm like, wow, he's got some skills,
Yeah, he's a phenomenon. And his dad was a natural athlete too. Now, he said, I wish he had some more competitiveness because, he needs to, life does get competitive. That's true.
Yeah.
But does he have to have it now while he's a really lovely, sweet kid? And he's really, really sweet, innocent boy. Even though he's really big and everything, he's lovely. So do we want to change his nature now? Or do we want to just let him grow into it? That's the thing. And how much of a right do we have to impose something on someone else's life just because we think that life should work this way?
I've seen, I'm just trying to think of a few things without sort of saying who they are, but I've essentially seen, as we grew up, we saw people get pushed by their parents, whether it be academically, obviously not me because I can't say the word, sport and, and things like that. And I was never pushed through, I was given the decision. I was able to make my own decisions. I was never pushed in anything really, the way that I remember it anyway. But, like I've seen people get pushed and I've seen the results and, it's not a positive one sometimes, but that's just my opinion. So, there may be some positive results out of that sort of thing, but the way that I see it, there's a lot more negative results. I hope negative is not too strong of a word, but results that I wouldn't be happy with, I guess.
Yeah. Look, if you are pushing your kid that hard in a particular field, let's just say sport, and they don't make it to the big leagues and they retire just like you and me, and their greatest moments are not much better than ours. Like, if you're not playing at the highest level, there's not that much different to what you've done. I mean, you played at a really high level at the amateur level.
Yeah.
But so then what? Was it all worth it?
Yeah. I know.
That's the thing. Like, my kids don't play competitive sport, and people might say, "Oh, but they're missing out on so much." But unless they're going to go on and win Wimbledon or something, like, why would I push them? They don't have that potential. They know who they are. They live a great life. So I feel like you used the word negative, but there can be a lot of negative effects from it as well. If it doesn't pay off in the end, I mean, then what? If your self-worth is just attached to that, then you've got a whole new complex that you've created, don't you?
Yeah. Look, I think we could talk for hours on this. I'm going to just change it up a little bit. Still with fatherhood. Just going to change direction, I guess. What about, now my dad told me a story recently, and it just sort of prompted a few things, but I'm just going to say the question, what about protectiveness? Like if your kids are harmed or potential to be harmed, by another kid, for example, how do you navigate that?
Yeah. So it's about giving your kids the confidence to stand up for themselves and preparing them to do so. So I've told you before that my eldest son and I, we've been doing a lot of verbal sparring, and we actually did some more last night. And I'll tell everyone what we actually did. And this might sound a bit full on, but there's been a lot of stuff in the media about coaches or people in positions of authority doing things to children, doing things to not even children, doing things to adults over whom they've got some sort of power. Yeah. And this was at some of the highest levels of sport. Yeah. So I actually drilled with my son some things to do when that sort of thing happens. And, it was pretty uncomfortable for me, to actually talk to him about it. And I mean, he already knows that, things happen in the world that, are pretty awful, but they shock you. That's the thing. When you get attacked, it's fight, flight, or freeze. And if you freeze, then that can come across to some people as consent. And I'm not saying it is. I'm saying that can come across to the perpetrator as consent. So what I wanted to do was to train my son so when it does happen, he doesn't go into that state of freeze. He can fight. So it's about being very, very strong with your body language and with your words to be able to keep someone at a distance and be really assertive. So that's what it's. So to answer your question, to answer your question, Jarad, it's about preparing the child in the first place.
Okay.
Yeah, and the first step of that is body language. So if they've got confidence, their body language actually changes.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's preparing.
Yeah. So when it happens, sorry, your question was for when it happens. And
both. I did say preparing as well, but so realistically, as a dad though, some other kid, punches your son in the nose. Yeah. And your son comes home with a bleeding nose. Yeah. And it was just this. Yeah, whatever. Okay, I'll just leave it like that. Yeah. How do you navigate that?
Yeah. So to me, it's about empowering my son. It's not. I can't get involved there. I can't go right. Where is he? Or even the whole I'm going to talk to his parents thing. I would ask my son, what would you like to see happen? That would be the most important thing. If he says just leave it, I'd say okay. Well, then we need to make sure that we get process his emotions through it, because there's a lot to unpack from an event like that. Firstly, you've been beaten. So forget about the whole assault. I mean, it could have been a game of chess, that he got beaten and he can't handle it because someone beat him. Yeah. So there's a whole being defeated thing. So let's unpack that. Let's talk about what that's about. Let's talk about the physical thing. Okay, how's your nose? If he's okay, well, all right, let's just say nothing's permanently damaged. We've unpacked his emotions. Then we can move on to the next step, empowering him to be in charge next time it happens. That's all we can do, unless I'm going to get physically involved, which I don't recommend to anybody. Now, if it's a big case of bullying, maybe you need to get other parties involved. And I'm sure that the parents of the other child would like to discuss it. Something similar did happen to my youngest. He got tripped over by someone who does jiu-jitsu within the homeschooling community. And, it really was kids being kids. And as much as he can be offended by it, and he doesn't hit back. He's a very strong kid. So I've told him, don't hit people because, you will hurt them. And so he knows not to hit anybody. And we let him unpack that. He can say anything he wants about the person, and we just let him discharge.
Yeah. So, okay. So I'm going to put another scenario forward, and it's on the bullying side of things, but it's more, well, for me, when I was 8 years old, I got given money to go get some milk from the shop. So you know where the shop was from our place.
Yeah.
I jumped on my bike. It's like 2 blocks. It's a quiet street.
Yeah.
On my way there, I got 2 older kids that I knew from school, and I think, well, we were in primary school, so I was 8, so I'd been year 2 or 3. I think they were in year 6 or maybe 7. Maybe they'd just gone to high school. They stopped me and took my money, and I rode home. And I remember being I don't remember it much until Dad brought it up. And I rode home and I told Mum, I said, "Oh, those guys," and I knew their names. They lived around near us.
Yeah.
They stopped me and they took the money, and they sort of got really close. And I don't think they punched me or anything like that. But I gave them money, and I kind of went a bit. I thought I was in trouble. Like, I remember telling my mum, I was like, "Oh, like, I don't want to tell you because But anyway, I did. I didn't think it was a big deal. And then Mum rang Dad, and I've never seen Dad like that. Like, this is in the 80s. Like,
yeah.
So he's like, "Yep, I'm coming home from work." And at the time, I was like, "Okay, I hope I'm not in trouble." Not that I ever thought my parents would put me in trouble, but I don't know. I just had that feeling of like I shouldn't be saying anything. And but I did. And then my dad came home and did what he had to do. And like, I'm happy to let him explain what he did, but he stood up for me, and he went and spoke to the parents.
Yeah.
Like he there was a lot in between it, but for me, like, I said to him, "How do you, as an adult, like, want to, your kid just got pretty much rolled."
Yeah.
So, and how did you not want to? How would society look at you if you turned around and said, "Well, that kid's bloody 14 years old, I'm going to whack him"? Like, you shouldn't, 100%. But geez, your natural instinct, if your kid got beaten up or rolled or whatever, is to, is to protect.
Yeah,
surely.
Yeah.
But and this wasn't a case of at school or anything like that.
Yeah.
It was out in public,
Yeah.
So it wasn't a case of me going, "Oh, don't go and talk to my friends." It was just a little argument. It was, it was a genuine, like, could have been a police matter, really.
Yeah, well, it is. That's different. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know how I'd go with something like that. I really don't, until, like I said, I'd let my dad tell the story, because he was there and he did it, but and he did nothing untoward. Please don't think that.
Yeah.
It was just, he just went and approached the parents. The short version is he went and approached the parents and told them, and they were well and truly on his sid.
Yeah, of course.
One of them even said, "If you want to kick his ass, I'll hold him." This is back in the 80s. It's a little bit more, not that but it was more of a, at that time, I think they were sort of half, they were on a good relationship enough to sort of know it was a little bit of a joke. But yeah, it was, I don't know how I'd handle it. And it just sort of, like, I hardly remember it though as an adult. So I don't know if that was a defense mechanism that I just blocked it out. But then my dad told me about it, and he remembers like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
But it was such a big deal for him. And for me, it wasn't necessarily, like, it sort of shows some things, when time goes on. It's like, oh, that didn't. And I said to him, I don't even remember how I presented. Was I really upset? And you go, "No, you weren't that upset." He goes, "You're more in shock."
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. But as a parent, if you see a kid like that, and you know that there's 2 people responsible for that, it'd be a hard thing to hold back.
Yeah, I agree. I think your dad handled it perfectly, actually. I can't think of a better way to do it. And that's, you did the right thing. Like, if it's a case of bullying or something, there is some sort of authority you can go to, in this case, the other parents.
Yeah.
Then it worked. And also it was a criminal matter. There was money involved. I don't think that's cool.
Yeah. No, it isn't. No matter how minute the money was, it was still the action.
Yeah. Yeah. The principle of it as well.
Yeah. So, but yeah, look, like I said, I don't know how I'd handle it, but as a dad now, because I said to him, if you went up to someone's door now and they'd all have cameras on you and like get their phone out and like
Yeah.
be on the internet as like, or on current affairs, some mean old man coming to town. But you're only defending, like it's a crazy world, like, and that's why I said, it was only the 80s. They didn't do that sort of stuff then. But, now how do you navigate that? I really don't know. But I suppose it's just something that you just have to learn to deal with. And at the time, hopefully cool heads prevail.
Yeah.
And you don't end up doing something you'll regret.
Yeah.
But I think the main thing there is, going back to your points, is it's what your kids want to be done.
Yeah.
I think, because your natural instinct is just to go, all right, I'm going to go and protect my kid. But if your kid says, with a cool head, says, look, I'm more interested in, trying to work out, how to avoid this, or, then you've got to listen to your kid.
Yeah, I think your dad still did the right thing. I don't know what you wanted, what 8-year-old Jarad wanted at the time. But
I don't know.
Yeah, I think he did the right thing and he went about it the right way.
Yeah, I think so. Talking back through it, basically explaining to the parents that this could be a starting point. You might be visiting your son in jail if he continues to do something like this, would probably, if my kid did something like that, I definitely it would hit home.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'd want to know about it too if my kids did something like that to another child.
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't be, if my kid did something to that to another child and someone came up and told me, I wouldn't be aggressive back to that person. 100%. Like I'd listen to their side of the story, with the cool head. I'd understand they might be wanting some form of like, not revenge, but you know what I mean? They would be wanting some form of retribution, maybe. I don't know. Yeah. They'd be quite riled up, but being on the other side would be an interesting one as well. Yeah. Because kids, you never know with kids, they see something on TV or, something in their little brain tells them it's the right thing to do. And
Yeah. Jarad, when we first met this morning and you had this idea for this episode, it was a question from the audience. I know we've just slightly run over time, but I just wanted to let the audience know we were hoping to go in a completely different direction. It was more about the adjustments you make in your life when you have children, for example, not being able to, like you mentioned, not being able to dip down the pub whenever you want. For me, it's not being able to have a sleep after work.
Yeah.
That was more the direction we were thinking of going in, and it's just gone in a completely different way. I just wanted to go back to our very first episode where I asked what the purpose of childhood was. And one of the biggest things that I've come to learn is that it's to develop secure attachments. That's it. So we always think about the skills we want our kids to learn. We always think about the person they want to be. You can't become that person with a sound mind, with great mental health, without having secure attachments with good people around you. Humans need connection. We're built for it. It's just the way our neurology is. And if you don't have good connections or good modeling with, the right kind of people, you'll join anybody. Yeah. And you'll form a connection with anybody you can get your hands on, and it's not going to be healthy for you. So to me, if my kids can have secure attachment with us parents who genuinely love them unconditionally and want them to just be the people that they were born to be, if we can do that for them, then the rest will follow.
Yeah, we've nailed it. Yeah. Yeah, totally agree.
All right, Jarad, thank you so much.
Thank you, buddy.